Lucien Varelli loved me best when my madness belonged to him. I tracked his convoy routes, checked his burner phones, and almost turned the city upside down whenever he disappeared for more than 5 minutes. At first, Lucien loved it. He kissed the signet ring on my hand, and swore no woman, no family, no power in the city could ever take him from me. Until the night I cut off a call from Celeste Ardian. After that I was no longer his wife. I was a problem, a scandal. A woman too unstable to stand beside the heir of a ruling house. Oh. So Lucien signed the papers and sent me to St. Dymphna House. They called it a private residential clinic. What it really was a place where inconvenient women were broken down and rebuilt into something quieter. 5 years later, Lucien came to take me home. The director told him I had done beautifully. I no longer screamed. I no longer fought. I knew how to lower my eyes, soften my voice, keep my hands still, and smile like a proper Donna. Lucien thought they had cured me. He was wrong. They had not cured my madness.
Oh.
They had only killed the part of me that once loved him. Oh, Chapter 1. By the time Lucien brought me back to Varelli House, the place had already rearranged itself around Celeste. She was standing in his private morning room when the butler opened the doors for us, damp-haired and barefoot, a dark cashmere robe belted loosely over a silk slip, one of Lucien's robes. She turned when she heard us and gave me that same careful look she had always worn around me, pity softened into manners. How was St. Dymphna, Serena? If you hadn't cut Lucien off from the secure line that night, the doctors would have reached me sooner. He never would have had to send you away if you hadn't forced his hand. 5 years ago, I would have crossed the room and clawed her face. Now I stayed still. Lucien looked from her to me, and whatever he saw in my face seemed to irritate him at once. Posture. The word barely left his mouth before my body obeyed. Shoulders back, chin level, feet aligned, hands settled neatly at my waist. The movement was automatic. Lucien stopped. At St. Dymphna, they did not need chains or bruises to make you compliant. They used repetition. If I slouched, I stood for hours with a brass tray balanced across my forearms. If I failed to hold eye contact when instructed, they made me begin an entire etiquette sequence from the start. If my hands shook, they placed porcelain cups in them and told me not to spill a drop before dawn. Eventually the body learned faster than the mind. Celeste's mouth curved. You see? She's much calmer now. Lucien kept looking at me. Courtesy, he said. So I turned to Celeste and gave her the smile they had taught me. Measured, pleasant, impossible to read. You're very generous, Miss Ardian. Mr. Varelli has always cared most about your well-being. I meant that. At St. Dymphna, they screened images of the two of them every evening. At galas. At race meetings. Leaving church together. Sitting too close at long tables while old families looked on as if the future had already been decided. At first, I shook when they made me watch. Later I stopped. The doctors called it desensitization. I thought of it more simply. If they forced you to stare at a wound long enough, it stopped bleeding where anyone could see. Lucien's expression hardened. So this is what they taught you. Polite venom. No. I lowered my gaze again. They taught me how a proper Donna was meant to stand. That seemed to catch somewhere under his skin. Celeste, still wrapped in his robe, spoke before he could. At least she understands that much now. Don't be cruel. He gave a short laugh. We'll see. Dinner was served in the smaller family room instead of the main hall. I noticed that before I noticed anything else. The place settings were different. The flowers were fresh. Celeste's preferences had already moved into the house like roots through stone. I had barely taken my seat when the nursery door opened down the corridor. A little boy padded in, clutching a blanket in one fist. He rubbed sleep from his eyes, saw Lucien, and went straight to him without hesitation. Papa. The word landed cleanly. Lucien stiffened, just for a second, before lifting him onto his lap. The child turned to look at me. He could not have been older than 5. His face was warm and flushed from sleep, his hair still mussed from the pillow. Who is she? Lucien's hand tightened around the back of the chair. A Serena, he said after a beat. This is Matteo. He'll be staying here. That was all. Not whose child, not why, not since when. I looked at him, and he looked back as if waiting for the old version of me to appear. Years ago, Celeste had sent me a photograph from a private clinic. Lucien's signet ring beside a hospital bracelet with her name on it, and a note beneath it. He is building a future. Just not with you. I had hated her for that. Later the clinic staff made me catalog copies of that photograph by hand. When Mateo was born, they replaced it with new images: his christening portrait, his first birthday, a candid of Lucian lifting him from the back seat of a car. I had looked at that child's face for 5 years before I ever saw him breathing. Now he was here, real, sleepy, curled easily against the man who had once sworn no one would ever replace me. I reached out and smoothed a hand over his hair. It was easier than hate. Hate requires strength, and I had been trained out of most of mine. I'm not upset, I said. Lucian studied me, unsettled again by the lack of spectacle. I did not understand why. This was what he had wanted, wasn't it? Silence, composure, no scenes, no pleading. Celeste lifted a silver spoon and set a small square of pistachio marzipan onto my plate. "The kitchen made this fresh," she said. "You used to love sweet things." I looked down.